Charles Oliveira versus Beniel Dariush is just going to be amazing, man. It's just going to be one of those fights to where you just sit there, you got your wings, and you just eating, and you like, this is the best fight I've ever seen, man. I can't wait for it. I really can't wait for it, man. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about it, bro. I'm not one of these technical YouTubers who break down everything about fights, man. I just like talking about fighting, and that's what we about to talk about, because this is going to be one of those fights that I am going to love every single second of, man. Now, let's talk about our two fighters inside of this fight, man. Over here, we have Mr. Charles Oliveira coming off one of the most entertaining title runs we probably have ever seen, specifically in recent memory, man. Of course, won the title, knocking out. First off, let's go back before that, bro. Beat Tony Ferguson, beat Kevin Lee, I believe, man. Knocked out Michael Chandler. Sub Dustin Poirier, sub Justin Gaethje, man. And the whole time, just made fan after fan after fan after fan, man. Because of the fact that people just love this story, and they love the fact that very few champions go out there and put it on the line. Oliveira put it on the line every single time, man. So Oliveira, again, one of the best fighters in the UFC, one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. And on the other side, we got a dude who's like routinely just been underrated. And I say this all the time, this happens a lot in MMA where dudes get up in their career and you just see them go on one last run, right? You just see them go on that one run where it's like, either I'm going to become a champion, or I'm going to fight for a title, or I'm never going to fight for a title. And I feel like this is it for Beniel Dariush, right? Now, I don't think he's insanely old, but he's missed time with injuries. He's missed time with all these different things. And I think this is his run right here, man. And you're kind of seeing this with Belal Muhammad, where these dudes just they flip a switch and they just start to win fights by whether or not you think it's entertaining or whatever, by any means possible, they come out and win fights, man. So Beniel Dariush, of course, I think it's on like a 5 or 6 fight win streak, beat Tony Ferguson, man. I believe almost snapped his leg. Yeah, he the one who snapped his leg. Oliveira got his arm. So yeah, Tony, we love you, man. And of course, beat Mateusz Gamrot in his last fight, which I think was absolutely amazing. He was matched up with the champion Islam Makhachev at one point. He did pull out of that fight, and when he wanted to get that fight rebooked, the UFC just made Oliveira versus Islam, which of course resulted in Islam winning the title. So yeah, that's the breakdown for these fighters. Let's talk about the actual fight. Now, for whatever reason, everybody thinks this is going to be like an insane grappling match, man, which it could be, but neither one of these dudes really use their grappling as in an offensive manner. And I don't want to say they don't offensively grapple, right? And I don't know how to really explain this, but specifically, let's start with Beniel Dariush, right? Beniel Dariush is an amazing grappler. He doesn't really grapple offensively a lot. Even in the Mateusz Gamrot fight, he was the one defending takedowns. He was stopping Mateusz Gamrot's takedowns. He wanted to strike during that fight. Now, that's partly because Gamrot's striking really is not that great. But Tony Ferguson, of course, he used his grappling. But fights before that, I think he had like 3 or 4 KOs on this run, man. So, yeah, he doesn't use his grappling offensively a lot. And then Oliveira usually really only uses his grappling to chase finishes. He's not one of those dudes who's going to lay in prey or take you down and try to grind out control time. Even in the Dustin Poirier fight, Dustin kind of just closed his guard, so Oliveira took advantage of that and just smashed him with elbows and hammer fists, man. And then, of course, the third round, he came out and chased a sub off of the cage, man. So I don't think this is going to turn into some huge scramble fest where both of these dudes are wrestling and they're trying to out-grapple each other. This is going to be a striking fight, or more importantly, this is going to be an MMA fight. And a lot of people, when I say that, say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, particularly in MMA today, fights turn into 2 things. They either turn into a wrestling match where 2 dudes are just trying to out wrestle each other, or they turn into a glorified 4-ounce kickboxing fight where 2 dudes have 4-ounce gloves on and are just having a kickboxing fight. This is going to be an MMA fight. I think they're going to be chaining takedowns. I think they're going to be chaining strikes, and this is what high level MMA looks like. And the fight I think this is most going to resemble is actually going to be Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. And you say, well, why do you think this is going to resemble that fight? Well, again, you just put 2 dudes who are very, very good at MMA and are great at all around MMA inside of a fight, and you get bangers like this, man. Now, strategy for both fighters. One, I'm really interested to see how Oliveira comes off the Islam Makhachev loss. Again, it's been well documented, bro. Early in his career, he struggled a lot with mentally, where it was like he would get in his head, he would quit in fights, he would miss weight, and all of this different type of stuff. So I'm really interested to see how he rebounds off of that after losing his belt, after being champion and going on one of the most exciting runs. And for Beniel Dariush, like I said, this is his last time where he just is pretty much going to have a chance. It's clear the UFC really doesn't want to give him a title shot, even though he kind of has earned it, specifically with Islam not really having an opponent set up. But this is his time to try to figure out whether or not he can be a champion in the UFC. I feel like after this fight, they're just going to give him top contender after top contender, and he's essentially just going to go back down the board and have to restart all over again, man. So with that being the case, one, I do believe that Oliveira will come out as the lead fighter. Like, I think he's going to be the one putting on the pressure. That's just how he fights. Even in the Justin Gaethje, the Dustin Poirier, the Islam Makhachev fight, he was the one leading the dance, even though it did result in him getting knocked out, not knocked out, but getting knocked down to get Islam Makhachev. The one thing I do believe, though, is that Charles Oliveira is going to be a lot more contained in the type of strike. Contained in the type of strikes that he does. Again, in the last couple of fights, as the streak kind of went on, we've seen Charles Oliveira get wider and wider and wilder and wilder in the type of striking that he did. Particularly in the Islam Makhachev fight, jumping knees where he got knocked down and all that stuff. I do think his striking is going to be a lot more condensed, and I do think he's going to be a lot cleaner this time around. And then for Beniel Dariush, he's a patient fighter. He's not somebody who rushes a lot of things. He's going to try to counter fight off of Charles Oliveira's striking. I could actually see Beniel Dariush going for a decent amount of takedowns in this fight. And it's not because I don't believe that he can't strike with Charles Oliveira, but I do believe that he has a better pathway to victory by taking Charles Oliveira down. I don't think he's as good as a striker as Charles Oliveira, even though he might have a little bit more power than Oliveira does, man. So I do believe his pathway to victory is significantly better by just not even just taking him down, but controlling him. A lot of people talk about Charles Oliveira's BJJ, and don't get me wrong, his BJJ is amazing, but particularly when it comes to top pressure, if you get a guy like Dariush who has really good top game, who can hold people down, who can grind out rounds, I think that's his easiest pathway to victory. Now, with that being said, there's all the chance in the world that this just turns into a brawl and you just have two dudes. Because again, Oliveira is a wild fighter in the last couple of fights. He has been very, very risk calculated, isn't in his vocabulary. Like, he does not sit there just to say, oh man, we're just gonna have a boring fight. He's a wild fighter, and Beniel Dariush is a guy who we've seen is willing to trade. We've seen is willing to have these brawls, is willing to have these competitive fights on the feet, man. So this could ultimately just turn into two dudes trying to beat the shit out of each other, man. But I do think it's going to be a lot more contained of a fight than people are thinking about, but I also believe it's going to be an entertaining fight, because again, you just put two dudes who are very, very good at MMA. Like, they're not just good strikers, they're just good grapplers or good wrestlers, or they just do this. You put two dudes who are good at the whole entire sport of MMA, and you get these type of entertaining fights, man. So if I had to choose a guy, I'm an Oliveira fan. I'm going to go with Oliveira. Here's the thing. Two things I do think that Beniel Dariush could do. I can easily see Beniel Dariush TKO into Charles Oliveira. I don't think he's going to just straight flatline him, but I would not be surprised if Charles Oliveira gets TKO'd. He's coming off of, again, a tough fight against Islam Makhachev. He's had previous history where he's mentally been rough, and it's just like, I don't think he's going to quit, but I also wouldn't be surprised if his wildness is still there and he gets TKO'd. Or I wouldn't be surprised if Beniel Dariush just grinds out 3 rounds, man, like 2 or 3 rounds, where it's just like Oliveira, he's in his guard, he's trying to get up, but Dariush just keeps shooting for takedowns. He keeps getting them down. He gets all of these different type of things, man. But again, at the end, I do think this is going to be an entertaining fight. I don't think Dariush is going to be the guy who just sits there and tries to grinds out rounds, even though he did do that against Charles Oliveira. I mean, not Charles Oliveira, against Tony Ferguson, man. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this fight. Again, I'm not like the best technical breakdown dude. I just like talking about fights that I enjoy, and I think this is just going to be amazing, man. So I will see you guys in the next one. Appreciate y'all for watching, man. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm out, boys.